The jungle didn't speak, not in the way cities did. There were no horns, no chatter, no phones buzzing with reminders or screens flickering with headlines. The only voices belonged to the creatures that lived and died beneath the canopy. Hawks, crying in circles overhead, monkeys rustling in the distance, insects humming like electricity in the air. The wind didn't move quickly here. It crept through the leaves, brushing over bark, whispering stories in a language no man really understood. Boone Carver swung his axe at the thick pine trunk with the precision of a man who had done it thousands of times. Sweat gathered beneath the rim of his battered hat, dripping past the edges of his beard. His shoulders flexed, weathered by years of work and silence. He paused after every fifth swing, not from exhaustion, but from habit. His kind of rhythm had nothing to do with clocks. Behind him, a small clearing cradled a cabin made of thick, dark timber. It was simple, almost primitive. A single room, a stove, shelves stacked with tools, and a cot. The porch creaked when the wind touched it, but otherwise the place stayed still, like it was asleep. Boone worked in silence. The birds around him continued their symphony. His axe rose and fell. Occasionally he would glance at the sky, judging. Time not by the sun's height, but by the feel of the light on his skin. Then he heard it. At first he thought it was an animal, something small, maybe injured. But the sound was too soft, too human. He straightened slowly, holding his breath. Help! It was faint, carried on the breeze. His eyes narrowed. He turned in the direction of the sound, but saw only trees. Then again. Please. Boone dropped the axe. His boots moved fast, dodging roots, crunching leaves. His body knew this forest better than he knew himself. His heart beat faster, but not from fear. He followed the voice for 20 minutes, weaving through dense undergrowth, pushing past low-hanging vines. A hawk screeched above him. He barely noticed. He found her slumped against a fallen log, almost hidden under the ferns. At first, he thought she might already be dead. Her hair was tangled with thorns, her shirt soaked in sweat and blood. One leg twisted at an unnatural angle, and a long gash ran from her thigh to her hip. Boone crouched beside her. She was breathing, shallow, ragged. "Miss," he said. His voice was low, hoarse from disuse. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes opened a sliver. Panic danced in them, quickly followed by pain. She tried to speak, but her lips barely moved. He uncorked the flask at his side and tipped it gently to her mouth. She drank greedily, coughing between sips. "I need to move you," he said, already sliding one arm under her shoulders. She winced. Where are you taking me?" "My place," he answered. "You live out here?" she asked weakly. Boone didn't answer. He lifted her in his arms like a child and began the trek back. Her body was light from dehydration, but she was burning with fever. He could feel it radiating off her skin as he moved swiftly but carefully through the trees. Her head lolled against his shoulder. Once or twice she mumbled something, names he didn't recognize, cries for help that no longer needed answering. When he reached the cabin, he nudged open the door with his foot and carried her inside. He laid her on his cot, then stripped off his shirt and tied it around her leg, high above the wound, making a makeshift tourniquet. She screamed when he cleaned the cut, tears streaming silently down her face. He boiled water on the stove, sterilized, a knife, and carefully dug out a sharp piece of stone embedded deep in her muscle. She bit into a strip of leather he handed her, but the pain still made her convulse. After he'd cleaned the wound again and stitched it, he sat beside her for a long moment. "You'll live," he said, matter of fact. Her eyes fluttered open. Despite the agony, she gave him a shaky smile. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." He blinked, surprised. Then he looked away, tending the fire. She passed out soon after. He watched her sleep, wondering who she was, how she had gotten here. He didn't ask, not yet. For the next 3 days he barely left her side. He boiled rice, mashed roots, and fed her in small spoonfuls. He kept the fire warm, washed her forehead with cool water, and listened to her mutter things in her sleep. Names, places, numbers. Sometimes she cried out, other times she said nothing at all. It wasn't until the 4th morning that she woke with clear eyes. She sat up slowly, wincing. Her hair was a mess, her leg was still tightly bandaged, but she looked alert, present. He was carving a piece of wood near the window when she spoke. "You live here alone?" Boone didn't look up. "Easier that way." "Why?" He kept carving. The knife moved smoothly through the wood. "The world's too loud." She tilted her head. "Not all of it." He said nothing. She lay back on the pillow and stared at the ceiling. "What's your name?" "Boone." She paused. "I'm Evelyn." He nodded once, didn't smile. "You saved my life," she said after a while. "I found you." That's the same thing today. That night she cried quietly when she thought. He was asleep. He heard it, but he didn't say a word. Evelyn's strength returned slowly. She began to ask more questions. Where he came from, how long he'd lived there, if he had family. He gave short answers. She learned he was from Kentucky, that he had worked construction before he moved out here, that someone he loved had died. "Wife?" she asked gently one day, while he stirred stew at the stove. He didn't look at her. "Daughter," he said, and that was all. After that, she asked fewer questions, but she talked more about herself, about the world she came from, the city, the flashing lights, and endless meetings. Her voice changed when she spoke about it, sometimes hard, sometimes bitter, but always aching. "I was hiking," she said one morning, "had a guide, got tired of waiting for him to stop talking, so I wandered off, thought I could handle it." Boone just nodded. "I slipped, hit a rock, lost my bag. 2 days out there." "Before you found me?" He nodded again. "You don't talk much, do you?" "I talk when it matters," she smirked. "That's fair." As her leg healed, she began to help with small things, stirring soup, washing dishes, organizing tools. She carved a small bird out of a piece of scrap wood and left it on the shelf beside the window. He said nothing, but she noticed he never moved it. One night, as the fire crackled low, Evelyn asked, "Do you even know who I am?" He glanced over. "Evelyn." She studied his face. "I mean, really?" He didn't answer. "I own Calder Global, hotels, real estate, jet fleets. Forbes called me Queen of the Glass Tower." Boone raised an eyebrow. "Still bleed the same as anyone." That made her laugh, deep, surprised laughter. She covered her mouth as if embarrassed. "No one talks to me like that," she said. Boone shrugged. "Not my problem." Evelyn began to walk outside on her own by the 2nd week. She leaned on a carved stick Boone gave her, but she managed. She watched the birds, listened to the wind. She looked more alive than she had in the first few days, less like a stranger in the woods, and more like someone waking up from a long sleep. She stood beside him one afternoon as he split wood. Her voice was quiet. "You think I could live like this?" Boone paused, set down the axe. "Could," he said. "But you won't?" She turned to him. "Why not? You don't belong to the trees like I do? And you think you do?" He nodded. "I made peace with the quiet." She didn't say anything for a long while. Then, "What if I don't want to go back?" He looked at her, really looked. "Then tear it down," he said. "Build again." On the 31st day, the sky opened with the sound of a helicopter. Evelyn stood with her hand resting on the porch railing, her eyes scanning the sky. Boone was beside her. The helicopter landed in a clearing just beyond the trees. She turned to him. "Come with me," she said suddenly. "You don't belong here either, not anymore." Boone didn't flinch. "I wouldn't last a week in your world." She stepped closer, kissed his cheek. "Then I'll come back," she said. Boone's voice was soft. "They all say that." She looked into his eyes. "I'm not them." She stepped back, then walked to the clearing. Boone watched her board the helicopter. The blades churned the trees into a storm. The wind swept past him, carrying her scent, her laughter, the memory of her presence. Then she was gone. The jungle was silent again. He returned to his axe, to the trees, to the wind that whispered only to him. But something had shifted. The silence wasn't as heavy, the loneliness not as deep. 3 months passed. He heard the car before he saw it, an SUV crawling along the edge of the path, tires crunching leaves. She stepped out alone, same wild hair, stronger legs, brighter eyes. "I bought the forest," she said breathlessly. 50,000 acres. It was going to be logged. I stopped it. Boone stared. "It's a reserve now," she explained. "You're the steward." He blinked. "You always buy your friends." She smiled. "No," she said. "I just make sure they have a reason to stay." She walked to him. He didn't move. They stood there, quiet. The trees swayed around them. The wind passed between them gently, like an old friend. Boone Carver, who had not spoken to another soul for years before her, reached for her hand, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel alone.